All right, Tuesday, October 17th, 2023. This is Ali-M.O.N.Y, Ali, Mayor of New York. What if I ran for the office of mayor? What if I was given the office of mayor? What would I do? Well, these are a few thoughts that I have while I try to figure out, who am I? Why did this idea even come to me? Well, I know where the idea came to me. It came to me because someone tried to take a shot at me on our softball team at our theater, saying that my softball name would be Ali-M.O.N.Y. And I said, oh yeah, Ali-M.O.N.Y? Like Ali, Mayor of New York? You know, when people have fun names in softball, they put them on the back of their softball jerseys. That's how it began for me. And so that's where Ali-M.O.N.Y came from. It's not something I really thought about, although, as I've mentioned before, taking cab rides throughout my 2+ decades in New York, I've had a dozen people say to me by the end of the cab ride, you should run for mayor of New York, or you'd be a good mayor. I don't know why. Maybe it's the way I speak. Maybe it's the things I say. Maybe it's trying to make this city the greatest city in the world, which I think it's up there. It has the potential to me to be the greatest city in the world, including the 5 boroughs, although each of the boroughs could be its own city in its own right. And so each time I'm trying to say things out loud, figure out who I am, what I would do, what my platform is. My platform is simple, though, and I've said it before and I'll say it again. Clean streets, safe streets, free streets. Now, the clean part is self-explanatory. The safe, also fairly self-explanatory, meaning safe streets where you can walk down the street and not have a fear of being accosted, robbed, beaten, taken advantage of in any number of ways. That is going to take some time, and it's going to take some tough decisions to make sure the people who do those things think twice about doing them, and there are fewer of them on the streets because once they do them, they are off the streets, and they are paying for the crime they committed. The free streets part of safe streets, clean streets, free streets, and I guess I got the clean and the safe backwards because I think it really does begin with cleanliness. And as some have said, cleanliness is close to godliness, which I believe is true to some degree. Keeping it clean, start simple. And whatever that idea of God is to you, that higher power, that infinite wisdom. And so the free streets part comes with free to be you and me, or love is love is love is love. Meaning walking down the street holding whoever's hand you want, wearing whatever you want. You know, again, as I've said, I don't even want to say within reason because then there becomes a fine line of like, well, what does that mean within reason? Really wearing whatever you want. And I've seen stuff on certain days where people are letting it all hang out. And so I would say, aside from genital nudity for now, let's keep it where you can wear whatever you want. Hopefully what you're wearing, I think we have to take into account children. We don't want to have children asking, what is that? Why is that hanging out? Or what does that T-shirt mean? Let's use it to express our artistic sides and be creative if you want to be. But really it's being able to hold whoever's hand you want walking down the street without getting accosted. Now, again, you're going to have catcallers, people who are going to say stuff. You're going to have people busting chops. In a different place in time, I thought a good prank show would be having someone walk down the street, a female, in nothing too provocative, but just, basic clothing, what she wants to wear. And the moment somebody catcalled her, a van would pull up and a group of ninjas would jump out and they would start catcalling the person who had done the catcalling to turn the tables on them. I thought this would be an interesting prank show. It doesn't have to be ninjas. It can be, a group of construction workers jump out of a van once a woman gets catcalled and they start catcalling a person surrounding that guy who did it to let them know what it feels like. But again, that's a prank show. And look, as I've said, I'm a small-time actor, small-time comedian. Do I think that would make for a good video content? Because now we're not even talking about television anymore. We're talking about video content. And as I said, New York City needs to figure out a way to get into its own video content, to create content, to bring people to New York City. luckily it's New York City. So people save up their whole lives to come to New York, to visit, to walk in Times Square, to go to Central Park, to see the Empire State Building, to see the Statue of Liberty. They're coming from all over. So New York does a lot of the heavy lifting for us in terms of its history. But it doesn't mean we shouldn't try to bring more tourists here by showing them what an amazing city it is and creating our own content. I think I mentioned the last one of these, how we try to enlist the private sector to help make better the public sector, meaning getting a paint company to come on board to be the official paint of the New York City fire hydrant or the official paint of the New York City mailbox. And I think you would have a bidding war between Benjamin Moore, Sherwin-Williams, Behr out of Home Depot, Glidden, all fine paints, different categories, different colors, but all of the colors can be replicated in any paint shop. A lot of the times we use Benjamin Moore Heritage Red exterior grade for our paints in our spaces. But you can do that with other aspects of New York. You can also have the official shoe of the New York City, firefighters, the official boot of the New York City garbage. Again, I don't want to say garbage men. It's got a bad sound to it when you call someone a garbage man, because they're not garbage men. They're New York's strongest is what they're referred to. I think New York's finest is maybe NYPD. New York's bravest is FDNY. And I believe New York's strongest is the garbage department. I'd also like to see on the garbage trucks, instead of just don't litter, throwing a please in front of that. I'd love to see a please don't litter. And then maybe underneath in a smaller font, this is your city. And again, as I've said, I think we have to instill in people that littering is a cry for help. And if you got garbage trucks going all around the city, I think it's worth it to let people know, hey, take the garbage with you. But I think every aspect of New York City can get a sponsor. And so if somebody becomes the official boot of New York City, Timberland, the official boot, or whoever, whatever footwear comes in and says, look, we're going to give your, police officers shoes at cost, right? We still got to make some money off of it. Maybe they donate all the shoes, one pair a year. But I think I have to look this up, but I believe there's 80,000 police officers. I'm not sure about that. I have to look that up. But I heard it's the 8th largest army in the world if you counted up how many police officers there are. But if you could get people involved in their shoes and somehow help them by getting them shoes at cost, wholesale instead of retail, then you become the official shoe of the New York City Police Department. That has advertising value. And I'm sure you could get two companies at the end to vie for that right. In the end, the world is turning into big stack poker. The World Series of Poker starts out with 10,000 plus players, and by the end of it, there are two players, and one player beats the last player and takes all the chips of the 10,000 players. And that's what we're getting to right now in the world. We're getting to a point where there's going to be two of everything, and then eventually they either share it between the two of them, or one of them will sell it to the other, and then there'll be one. And that's happening already. Right now, if I'm not mistaken, there's only one way to really get electricity in New York City, and that's Consolidated Edison. So there's no competition. There's no electrical competition right now. It's just we provide the electricity, here's how much it costs. There's no way to go to one or the other. I remember when we were in the hospital having our first child, they had either Similac or Infamil, and every 6 months they went back and forth. And when you left, they gave you so much free product because they knew, well, you're going to buy this when you get home now. So we'll give you a bunch of free Infamil or Similac because you're going to get used to it. Your child will get used to it in the hospital. That's what you'll probably go out and buy. With like any, I guess, drug dealer mentality, it's giving away a taste for free so that someone may buy from there on out. In the same way in the kits or the packages for military in World War II, you got a free pack of smokes. Why? Because they wanted you to become a smoker. So they threw in a pack of smokes for you. They gave you the razor for free and sold you the razor blades or copiers. Copier companies basically sell you the copiers at like, how is this copier so inexpensive? This printer. It's because they're going to get you with the ink. That's how they make their money. So I think there's a way for New York City to say, look, we are a city, we're a commercial city in a capitalistic world, and there's no reason not to get businesses to advertise with New York City and for New York City to generate revenues off of things it's doing and needs anyway, whether it's paint, shoes, clothing. As I said, the challenge is going to be, where do you draw the line with and against big sugar or big tobacco or pharmaceuticals? How do you find good, solid products that are, it's a no-brainer to advertise with them? See, if you try to get in and you try to do a, energy drink, now you're endorsing energy drinks, and really they have their downside to make the old heart pitter-patter. Now, as I've said before, and I'll say it again, I really don't know if I want to be mayor of New York, because it's a lot. And every day it gets to be more and more a lot, especially with the migrant crisis. And as I've heard lately, 3,700 people showed up last week. That's at the rate that people are showing up. And the other day, yesterday I was walking home, and there was a guy on one of those motorized scooters, like a Vespa type thing, doing a wheelie, going by other guys sitting on their scooters, showing off for them. You can't have that. It's not a go-kart park. And then today, as I was walking to work again, a guy in a truck literally went through a solid red light. Now, you're going to see people squeeze the lemon, meaning going through yellow lights. That happens in New York. But this guy, it was red from before he even crossed the line. Now, it's one thing to be in the middle when it goes from yellow to red. But when it turns red before you've even left your side of the street, and it's red when you're in the middle, you don't care anymore. Now, this is where, we have to get involved with maybe those cameras at every corner. And I believe there's a German-made camera that the city uses. They put up at corners, and when they catch you speeding or they catch you going through a red light, they take a picture, they send it to you. Here's your license plate. But that's also an issue now. Fake license plates, covered up license plate. At least New York City is a city where you have to have a license plate on the front and the back. In a lot of cities, you only need, and states rather, you only need a license plate on the back of your vehicle. But I think we have to be crystal clear with the license plates and covering them up. They have to be seen easily. None of this trying to hide them, and definitely none of these things where it spins to become a different license plate. But I've also seen a lot of people using fake plates because ostensibly they want to go through lights, they want to go through tolls, and they don't want to pay. And they're willing to take the risk. But there are many ways that I believe New York City can generate revenues giving good tickets by increasing the quality of life. And one of the things to increase the quality of life in New York City is not having to worry so much about somebody going through red lights. That's something that it seems like we can all be on the same page about. If it saves one life of somebody not getting hit by a vehicle that's going right through a red light, it's worth it. But again, it's going to take giving out tickets, confiscating vehicles, and making sure someone thinks twice before they think, you know what, I'm going to go through this red light, because 99 out of 100 times, it's probably going to not affect you. One time, you're going to hit somebody, and it's going to negate the whole 99 times you did it. It's like people who race around the city. Whenever I get in a cab and someone's racing around the city, and I'm telling them, look, can you just drive safely as if, your family's in the car in front of you and there's family in the back seat? Would you drive like this with your family member? I'm in the back seat. And unfortunately, being in the back of a yellow cab, many times for me, I feel like human cargo. Because it's small, you're cramped, you can't see. There's that divider that's usually scratched and blocking, and you've got this TV screen in front of you. The best vehicle for the yellow cab fleet that I ever rode in was probably the Crown Victoria. That was a solid vehicle. You had a lot of room in the back. The driver had a lot of room in the front. I think New York City has enough medallions and enough drivers that it should begin to invest in building a vehicle and starting a small car manufacturer somewhere on the 5 boroughs where we build 15,000 vehicles a year. And I think that would initially cover the fleet. Now, again, you can't force people to get the car immediately, but every 5 years you have to replace your yellow cab, I believe it is. And so in 5 to 10 years, you would have all the vehicles being one unified vehicle and really built from the perspective of a yellow cab driver in terms of hybrid, in terms of room for them, room for the people in the back, in terms of every possible way, really talking to them, really get into some design thinking, bring them in on board and say, hey, how can we build a yellow cab that is going to be something that you're proud of? The maintenance is less. The gas mileage is great. You enjoy driving it. You feel proud. You feel like a warrior. You know, I think that was the case with the Crown Victoria. People really enjoyed driving it. But little by little, it went away. The checker cabs, you know, I've only seen them, I think in pictures. I don't know if I've seen one up close, but they seemed like they had a lot of room in the back. The time I went to London, those vehicles, those were beautiful. They're beautiful livery taxis. And the people in London who become taxi drivers or livery riders, drivers, they have to take a test called the knowledge. And they study for a long time to be able to take this test to know where everything is. And there's a certain amount of respect. And I think it's something to consider, although now you could drive a yellow cab using nothing but GPS. I don't know how people used to get around without GPS. You may hear in the background somebody beeping because they're backing up. Yesterday I was sitting in a vehicle for a friend. I'm waiting for them to go to the doctor and come back out. And a car backed into me, a van, hit it, and then just left. As I said, New York City is a contact sport. You're going to get bumped. You're going to get hit. And I don't know. I guess we have to accept a certain amount of it. The challenge is right now, there is an apocalypse not only coming to this world, but it's already arrived at certain places. Some would say right now in the Middle East, in Gaza, it's an apocalypse. What's happening there, the bombings. And in Israel, and in the Congo, and various places where there have been earthquakes, Marrakesh, Afghanistan, floods in Lebanon. The apocalypse is already here on some level in some places. It just hasn't arrived in other places, and we're not aware of it. But it's here. And how do we solve these problems? How do we solve our own challenges? How do we solve the challenges of the Middle East? Will anybody listen? Or do we need benevolent aliens to come down and help us? Or one of them to come down and help us? Is that the only thing that's going to change things? An alien that has supreme powers and the ability to say, this is what you need to do. I'm going to help you, but you have to listen to me. Otherwise, I can enslave you. I can eat you. I can make you disappear because I'm an alien. But I'm here to help you. I think, and I've thought about it a lot, like what's going to change things. And I don't know if you're going to be able to change things with the adults. I think you have to begin with the children. And my thought is creating a massive youth athletics program, arts program, trades and crafts program, meaning figure out a way to get all the kids from the areas where people are fighting. So you take Palestine and Israel, and you have a youth athletics program that brings all the kids together and has different teams, and they're playing sports that are initially easier to get up off the ground. Like soccer is easier to get going because of what it takes. Tennis is harder because you need tennis courts. Basketball is harder because you need basketball courts. Running is probably more possible because you probably don't need as much. You need a place to run if you're doing tracks, but marathon running. So what are the easiest sports that we can instill in children to create a youth athletics program for regions? Whether it's all of Latin America, whether it's all of Africa, whether it's all of the Americas, whether it's all of the Middle East, but investing in children and finding ways for them to find the sport they want to play. And for some, it may just be walking. Walking is a sport. And if we can help kids walk, great. Speed walk, sure, it looks funny. but it's fun. Whenever I speed walk for fun, I enjoy it. I don't know how far I can go, but I can. But I can speed walk in a way where, I can do it for a little while, but it's not easy. My point being, there's a lot of ways to help the children play with each other in a good way, where they can somehow be brainwashed to realize you may be from here and I may be from here, but we're on the same soccer team. But again, it doesn't have to all be sports. It can be the arts. So it can be dance, it can be painting, it can be drawing, it can be any number of things. But I think it begins with making sure everybody can, I think it's beneficial. I don't think it's elitist to say it will benefit you to learn how to read. It will benefit you to learn how to read out loud. It will benefit you to learn how to write. It'll benefit you to be able to speak publicly. It'll benefit you to know basic math. It'll benefit you to know how to do a series of simple things. Cook a meal for yourself. Clean your home. Whatever it may be that may benefit your life. A basic set of human skills that we can help all children have. And then I think the trades. Going into these areas like Afghanistan, Palestine, anywhere in the world where, you've essentially got to rebuild from bombings. The trades, carpentry, sheetrock, plumbing, electrical, masonry, mortar, all those things that will have to be done. You'll need armies of people. And I really wish that we deployed armies to go and help people rebuild and build, and to make sure that people had the materials and we could train the labor. And then when we went in, we were not just going in to take over or to make docile the population that's there, but to give them skills and to get in and get out. And that's not going to happen in a day, a month, maybe not even a year. But once you get out, the people have the skills to build, have the materials. Because when you look at it, it's just a matter of if this, then what. If you're going to spend the money on bombs, then why not spend the money on sheetrock and plywood and 2x4 and mortar and cement, concrete, rebar? The tools are there. But how can we help to not give a man a fish or give a human a fish, but teach a human to fish, and thus building up their own world? There are parts of the world right now, and there's parts of New York City where roads have to be rebuilt. The roads are in such bad shape, they're going to have to be fixed. I don't think we realize the amount of work there is to be done, and that in many places the infrastructure is an ongoing concern. But I think New York City needs to engage in one of the most massive job programs in modern times, to create jobs to clean, maintain, and fix the 5 boroughs. I think there's no better way than to try to enlist the help of those who are here and give them skills. And again, it's finding the skill that suits the person. Someone may say, look, I want to be in a kitchen. I like kitchen life. Someone may say, I like hospitals. I want to be around hospitals. That's what makes me feel good. I saw a guy yesterday. I went to this place called Five Below where everything is under $5, but there are things above $5. But it's a fun place to go if you feel like you need a little retail therapy or you need some items. And there was a security guard at the top of the stairs. There's an escalator down, and he was bouncing a ball and throwing it against the wall and catching it. And I didn't say anything, but I thought to myself, this man wants to be making a living bouncing a ball. Now, how do you do that? Well, you can become a coach. You can coach kids in basketball. You can coach kids in soccer. I don't want to jump to say like, owning a sporting goods store because, again, any bricks and mortar store is going to be challenging. And unfortunately, if you can be Amazoned, meaning whatever you have, someone else can buy cheaper and faster on Amazon, you're going to get knocked out. It's not a fair playing field. You just can't compete with that anymore. And as I've said, I've seen 2 sporting goods stores go out in my neighborhood. One was a Sports Authority. They went out. Modell's went in. They went out. Now it's a FedEx. Now we're shipping stuff. And so we have to figure out a way to fill the bricks and mortar spaces that are all over the city. And we're only looking at the ones that are on the ground floor that we see for rent or empty. But I'm on an email list where I get 4 or 5 emails a day about office space that's available. There is so much office space available right now. And I honestly don't know who's going to go into it. What law firm that got used to having people work remotely is going to invest in people coming in back and building beautiful law firm offices? You don't need them anymore. Or accounting firms. Or any place where you needed a lot of space. And all of a sudden, COVID showed us that these people can work from home. They can save money. You can save money. You're going to have to rethink all this office space, or you're going to have to rethink the rents. The rents are going to have to be so low to begin with that people go, okay, fine. This rent is half what it was before COVID. We'll try to have a platform, a flagship in New York City. Some businesses need it. There's no way around it. You have to have a bricks and mortar store. Others have learned we can live without it. And others are just afraid because, again, people are talking when the next pandemic comes, there are still people who have PTSD. I have some certain level of PTSD as a tenant because of the pandemic and the loss of 4 businesses in 3 spaces, the surrender, whatever you want to call it. I think surrender is better because there's something to surrendering as opposed to losing, where you say, look, I'm going to wave the white flag and I'm going to surrender and hopefully live to live another day. But I even have my own reservations and trepidations, my own trying not to beat myself up about having taken another piece of property during the end of COVID, and now it's not working out, and I have to live with that, and I have to figure out how to surrender, sell, or turn it around. But I don't see how we turn it around because there's just the customers aren't there. People still are not coming in Mondays and Fridays. And so, as I said, I have a soft spot in my heart for bricks and mortar spaces, especially small mom and pop places or pop places or mom places or 2 mom places or 2 pop places, whatever it may be, where the people got together and said, let's do a bricks and mortar. Certain businesses you have to. And then unfortunately, what you charge is based on what your rent is, what your insurance is, what your energy costs are, what your data costs are. And then there's payroll. And as I've said, I'm all for minimum wage going up, but no one's talking about maximum rent or maximum insurance. It's not easy to run these businesses with all the costs. It's a razor's edge, and it takes time to build a business. Years to build something where you can run it. And then once you do, before you know it, your rent has gone up because there's a 3% increase at a minimum every year. And then your 10 years are up and anything can be done. Well, these are some things that I just wanted to put out. I wanted to just, again, keep talking out loud, finding out what my beliefs are, who I am. And then ultimately, whoever listens to this will either go, this is interesting. His voice puts me to sleep, or I don't mind cleaning my house to it. But ultimately, maybe it leads to something else. Maybe it leads to other ideas. Maybe it leads to New York City finding ways to get paint companies and shoe companies to become the official shoe of New York City, the official paint of New York City. And we begin to generate revenues in different ways than we once had for the city of New York, and really look at the whole city as a canvas. But as I said, I don't want these things to go over $29.59. I think that's enough of a spoonful. I truly love New York City. I hope New York City loves me. But I like the vistas, the environs, the landscape, the buildings, the walking. I love it all. And I wish I could wave a magic wand and make it a shiny city on the hill, maybe with your help.